Gotta say, EJ, out of all the setups we've had so far this series, I think this one might be my favorite. It's like we're at sleepaway camp.
Podcast in a box, man.
This is awesome. I love it.
It's pretty cool. We got bug protection. We got the most temperate summer weather you're going to find anywhere in the country. It's
literally anywhere in the country
it's like
right
72 degrees and breezy. It's perfect.
People in Phoenix are like livid.
They just turned it off. We just lost like half the folks. But this is a good way to start rounding out the series. We got this in 1 week more and feels like we're on the home stretch.
Well, we're talking NFC East today, again, for the last time. Finally picking a division winner, picking rookies of the year, players of the year. I mean, this was the best division in football last year. Could very easily be the best division in football yet again. And when we get into the power score summary for the division, it will be abundantly clear how much better they were than several other divisions in the NFL. So yeah, lots to go over today with our kind of final send off for the NFC East, and then we got one more division after this. So with that, Jay, Autumn, Anthony, whoever happens to be editing this one, roll the intro. Welcome to the Bootleg Football Podcast, NFC East Predictions Edition, going over all four absolute powerhouses that make up the NFC Beast this year. It was a good division last year. It could very well be, actually more than a good division. It was an amazing division last year. Could be an unfathomably overpowered division this year because you had 3 playoff teams in 2022, very nearly 4 playoff teams, and you could argue literally all of them got better. So I don't know where to go from here, EJ.
This is the division that we have been teasing for the entire series about. Just you wait. We'll bring it up. It's not the one you think it is. This was the most powerful division in football last year. Eagles at 14-3, Dallas at 12-5, Giants at 9-7, and Commanders at 8-8. And as we talked about in their episode at the beginning of the week, very easily could have been a 10-win team, especially if they've pivoted to Sam Howell a little bit earlier. So, and then you look at the improvements that all these teams have made, the losses they've suffered, and you kind of add it all up. And I'm with you. This could again be the most powerful division in football. Obviously, Philly was the winner. Playoff participants, as you mentioned, 3 of the 4 teams, Philly, Dallas, and the Giants. None of the teams, interestingly, had late season surges. The best any of them did in the last 5 games was 3-2.
You know why, right?
I do.
They started playing each other.
They're kicking the hell out of each other, which is a hallmark of this and several other divisions. But the way that all works out, when we look at the power scores for these teams, Eagles were at 7, Cowboys were at 8, Giants at 16, and Commanders at 18. When you add all those up, division power score is 49. We just add those averages together. It is the number 1 overall division for our divisional power scores, and it is 6 points better than the next best division.
They were insane. They were just completely, utterly insane, and half the division still wasn't even playing as well as they possibly could have, right? Because especially once you got in the playoffs, you saw like the talent differential for the Giants, like they were maxed out. Still made the playoffs, but they were maxed out, right? And the Commanders were really like a couple of unfortunate games away from being a 10-win team themselves, also probably making the playoffs. The Cowboys won 12 games despite not even having their starting quarterback for like a third of the season. So there was a lot of room for improvement even for the best division of football, and that's what makes them so insane. It's like we still haven't even seen this division at the height of their capability. Like obviously the Eagles were, it's hard to improve on for the Eagles, right? Other than winning the Super Bowl itself, but like as a division overall, it's just disgusting, like the concentration of wealth here. Every defense is good. Every offense has a strong run game. Like all of them are explosive. It's hard to find a weakness. It really is. And I really can't wait to watch them beat up on each other this year again, because literally all of them are capable of tearing wins off the other ones.
And if you look at the team power scores, the Eagles were 4th overall when we look at teams, and the Cowboys are 5th. So you have two teams from this division in the top 5. Giants come in at 13th. That's 3 in the top 13 from one division. It's not a surprise that overall at the end of the year, they were the most powerful division. And thinking about what they're going to be, I mean, the Giants, that was only their first year under Brian Dable. They've, and they had to take their medicine sort of salary cap wise as well. Mm-hmm. This year, they actually got to spend a little bit of money. They've retained.
Oh, they spent a little bit more than a little money.
Yeah, they've retained their key pieces. This division has a chance to be significantly better and was already the best.
Speaking of spending, by the way, looking at notable veteran additions, this could be through either trade or free agency signing or what have you. If you want full breakdowns team by team of all their veteran additions, obviously you can go to the individual team episodes. We spent significant chunks of every episode breaking down that. But, we kind of put out a list on screen here of the top names for every single team. And we put each other on the spot every single Friday of out of all of these top veteran additions across the entire division, which is the biggest impact veteran that any of these NFC East teams have brought in? Who is your answer?
I went with Brandon Cooks, which I don't think is a super obvious answer at first glance at this entire list. You might say, how can that be? I think when we get to the end of the year, when we get to the end of every year, whoever the quarterback is for Brandon Cooks go, there's a reason that guy gets 1,000 yards every year. He's really good. And in Dallas's case, that brings them significant balance. Everybody knows CD is the man. This isn't about Brandon Cooks being better than CD. He doesn't have to be. He has to be a really good number 2 and pull some coverage off CD. And he can do that. Veteran defensive coordinators around the league know better than to leave Brandon Cooks single covered or, lazily covered, because he will eat you alive. Quietly, he'll never get the press for it. But this gives Dallas's already serious passing offense some what I would call true balance as compared to last year that I think can take them another step further.
I'm not like the biggest training camp highlights guy, but you are already seeing Brandon Cook's training camp highlights populate the Twitter timeline. X timeline.
We're calling it Twitter.
Thank God. I don't want.
We're just calling it.
I don't
Twitter.
want to switch.
It's
a dumb name.
Twitter and tweets, folks. It will not be X and X's.
Oh, it's not Sheet anymore or Zeet or whatever the fuck.
They changed it to post is the action button now. It doesn't say tweet.
No.
Right. No. So it would be Twitter and tweets. Deal with it.
On the Twitter timeline, you see a lot of Brandon Cooks highlights pop up every single day. And it is kind of a reminder of like, oh, he's only 30. Like, he's still got gas. He still has the ability to get down the field in a hiccup. Even though he's been in the league a long time, like, he's still very much in his Tyler Lockett, phase of his career, where leave him alone at your peril, because he absolutely has the ability to climb on top of whoever your number 2 corner is and dust them. And Dak, for all his faults, does have a really nice deep ball. Now, we hope that Dak throws less picks this year. It's hard to throw more picks, but he does have a really nice deep ball when he's locked in. So I do think that as a number 2 / vertical threat opposite CD, hard to find a better one than Brandon Cooks at this stage of his career, and especially for the money too.
You know what cracks me up about this stage of his career?
What?
He's 29.
I thought he was 30.
He might be 30. He will be 30 by the end of the season. He's 29.
Hold on. Is he not even past the 30-yard? Or the 30?
Regardless, it feels like he's 35.
Son of a bitch, he is 29. I thought he was already 30.
A lot of people, if you ask them, would say like, oh, he's like 33.
September 25th. Okay, he's like almost there.
The wheels are coming off. He's not even 30. It feels like he's been around since, Roger Staubach.
He's on year 10. He's literally in year 10 because he got drafted in 2014.
Mm-hmm.
So this is season number 10, and he's not even 30. Wait, did he come in the league at 19?
I'm just saying.
Was he one of those that
I'm just
was
saying
a puppy?
It's the most shocking number I came across in putting this entire series together was like 2? No, that number can't start with a 2. Are you kidding?
That's insane.
Yeah.
That's absolutely insane. I'm like legitimately shocked by that.
Yeah, it took me a minute. I had to get up and walk around when I was typing that up.
Good player, though. I think that's what we're trying to say.
Very good player.
My pick was, for a similar reason, Darren Waller. Giving Danny Dimes an explosive weapon, which he has not had. I mean, he had Evan Ingram, who athletically could have been
should
have,
yeah.
but didn't really become the Evan Ingram that we know and love until he got to Jacksonville. But like Darren Waller on paper is what Evan Ingram should have been for them. He's just already there.
Yep.
And I think bringing him in, and if he's healthy, will be the most consistently explosive weapon that Jones has had. Again, keyword, if healthy.
We hope.
We'll see. And when you throw in that they have like an 11 deep receiving core behind him, he doesn't have to do everything by himself. He can just go be that seam ripper. You could put him outside and have him post people up, do some big slot stuff, but he doesn't have to carry the entire load of the offense. He can just be that can opener that can just make a play when you need him to. And then all the consistent down in, down out stuff we can leave to, Isaiah Hodgins, Paris Campbell, Darius Slayton, all that. But it's like, if we need 30 yards and we need 30 yards right now, that's Darren Waller's job. And he's going to be pretty damn good at it because he always has been.
Yeah, I hope he returns to form. I think everybody, including Giants fans, are really hoping that we get the Darren Waller that we got a couple of seasons ago. He was pushing over 1,000 yards easily, looking extremely dynamic doing it, a legitimate number 2 in what was a very high-powered offense, and, at times tickling the number 1 spot in that offense. And even if he doesn't hit those heights, even if he's at the top end of tight end production, 800-900 yards, 5-6 touchdowns, it'll be a very solid investment by the Giants.
Looking at notable rookie additions, and again, this could be offense or defense, there were so many to pick from. And we had Jalen Carter get drafted in this division. Nolan Smith. I mean, really, any Georgia Bulldog you could put on this list. Sidney Brown from the Eagles. Some tight ends that we really like. Deuce Vaughn, the Mighty Mite, one of our favorites. 5'5", and just full of piss and vinegar. Love him.
Shredding people.
Ricky Stromberg, one of our favorite centers, got drafted in this division. Out of all these rookies, though, biggest impact year 1, who you got?
For me, it's John Michael Schmitz, the center drafted by the Giants. He's slated for a starting spot already. He'll probably be there for the next 7 or 8 years, barring injury. And with how dynamic and diverse the run game that Brian Daboll brought to the Giants is, the addition of John Michael Schmitz is like a can opener there, because he can do so many things so well that are going to allow Daboll to just expand that already sort of crazy mini golf funhouse playbook of the run scheme to, the end of the universe. It's one of the few rookies that I don't think there was any question from the time he was drafted. He's going to be starting. He's going to have a huge amount of impact, and he's going to be there and anchoring that line. And Daboll's just going to, you say it all the time, going to sleep like a baby. Daboll's going to sleep like a baby all season with JMS at center.
It's Creed Humphrey all over again, where when he got drafted, and I remember when Creed got drafted in the second round, we're like, did he kill somebody? Like, is there a body buried in the desert? Why did he go as late as he did? And of course, there wasn't a valid reason. He just fell, because centers fall sometimes. But he stepped on the field. He was immediately a top 3 center as a rookie, and then arguably became a top 1 center by the end of his second year, with all respect to Jason Kelce. JMS could very easily follow in those footsteps as well, of being a top 5 center as a rookie, because he is so physically talented. He's so smart. He's got an incredible anchor. He can do anything as a run blocker. Like, you want him to drive people off the line of scrimmage, he can do that. You want him to pull in space, he could do that. You want him to, reach block a head up 2 by himself, he could do that, which is a very hard thing to do, by the way. Especially in that division with some of the DTs he's going to be facing. Like, that is a murderer's row of interior defensive linemen. The Giants would not be able to survive their schedule without JMS, but he is good enough to survive that schedule and all those big-time DTs he's playing against. So, like, it's Creed 2.0 to me in terms of immediate impact. I fully understand that pick. For me, though, I'm going one of his new arch rivals.
Yes, indeed.
Mozzie Smith in Dallas for a very similar reason. Dallas defense is already great, and we talked about that earlier this week. Last week? No, this week.
This week.
I know time is a construct at this point.
Yeah.
But one thing that I really felt they needed to upgrade was, in particular for interior defensive linemen, somebody who could play either a 0, a shade, a 2, a 2-eye, like anything basically from, head up with the guard to head up with the center.
Yep.
Just an absolute war daddy in the middle. Their own version of DJ Reader. Because if you look at that Dallas defense, they played a lot of cover 2. That was one of their comfort zones, was cover 2. And if you're going to be playing that much cover 2, there's inevitably going to be some scenarios where they motion somebody into the core of the formation. They try to catch you in bad numbers in the box. They try to run the ball on you. Safeties are, 12 to 15 yards deep. They're taking a step back at the snap. They're late to fill. Like, the math is bad. And you got to still stop the run. Because it's 2nd and 8, and you're in cover 2, and they're running, like, split zone on you out of nowhere. Mozzie Smith is going to allow them to do that, to play those types of coverages and still stop the run and get to 3rd and 6 rather than 3rd and 1. And that is such an invaluable piece of any great defense, is the ability to make math useless. Not to mention, like, he's a pocket pusher on 3rd down. I think he does have high upside as a pass rusher, a la DJ Reader. But for Dallas to be able to put him on the field on early downs and call any coverage and still feel good about their run defense is so amazingly valuable, and it's why they drafted him so high. And I think that if nothing else, he's going to give them that flexibility as a rookie.
He's the flip side of the JMS coin for Dallas.
Mm-hmm.
He's JMS on defense. Guy in the middle that has immense amounts of power, set all kinds of weight room records at Michigan. You can go watch all those videos. Just insane stuff from a guy of his size. Came out this week and said, I don't even like playing football. I just like hitting people.
People got upset about that, by the way. And I'm like, why?
That's his job, folks. That's what got him drafted as highly as he was. And he is custom tailored to do that, like from a physical and a mental standpoint. And it is going to allow them, already a very aggressive defensive line, to be aggressive on all downs and really count on that position in a way that they haven't. And occasionally, and this is rare for a rookie, I would say 1 time out of 4, get a win out of that.
Yeah.
Even when the math is bad, because Mozzie's just Mozzie. And he's going to go wreck people. So he's going to have some growing pains. He's going to get some ugly side double teams because coaches are going to be fed up with his crap. They're going to put him on the ground a couple times. And then you're really going to piss him off, and we're going to see what he's got. And that might be even scarier.
He's a grizzly bear, man.
Yeah.
And I can't wait to watch him versus JMS, whatever week the Giants and Dallas plays, because that's...
Whew. They get to do it twice, so
that's unstoppable force meets a movable object.
They are going to have, that's going to be must-see TV. You're going to see a lot of reps because Mozzie will be playing right in that box, and those two locking up is going to be, I feel like it's the Godzilla meme, right? Let them fight.
When we were when we were interviewing Juice Scruggs at the Shrine Bowl, he was a Penn State center, got drafted in the 2nd round of the Texans. And when we asked him, like, oh, who's the best defensive line you faced? And when he said Mozzie, which was like the first words out of his mouth, you catch like the little like Vietnam flashbacks like going through his eyes of like, God, that was a day.
Yeah.
Like that's the impact that he has.
It is the all day long. And the first thing we said was, checks out.
Yeah.
Like that, not surprised at all that he brought that name up, because he's going to make it that kind of day for every offensive lineman he faces. You better be ready for the full 4 quarters to come out there and just do battle, because he's not going to make it easy on you at all, ever.
Looking at division predictions now, which I know a lot of people just fast forward to these because they want to have a reason to yell at us.
That's right.
We'll start with division MVP. I went with the chalkiest possible name with Jalen Hurts for obvious reasons, because he's Jalen Hurts. Incredibly lethal deep ball thrower, incredibly lethal with the ball in his hands as a runner. Turns 3rd and 1s into 100%ers, turns goal line situations into 100%ers. Very good at working the intermediate middle of the field as well. Has evolved into a very complete quarterback before our very eyes, and one of the best quarterbacks in the league before our very eyes. I don't feel comfortable picking anybody but Jalen Hurts because of where his trajectory year after year after year has gone. And yet, you chose a different quarterback.
I did. I chose Dak, and I may come to regret it, but I don't think so. And if you look at where Jalen Hurts is as a player individually, which has something to do with this award, but not everything. A lot of these awards in terms of MVP is how well your team does. And I fully expect the Eagles to do better than the Cowboys this year, as well or better. I'm not predicting big regression for the Eagles, and that would lean towards picking Jalen Hurts because the quarterback of the best team gets the award. If you look at individually where Hurts is versus Dak, as far as Hurts has come, and it's a long ways. We've watched this climb. We predicted this, that he was going to improve in small bits year over year. It's all he's ever done in his entire career, and he's getting there. And last year, he really got there. If you look at where got there is individually versus where Dak is when he plays a full season, it's kind of startling.
Do the picks concern you at all?
They do, but we both know that picks like sacks are fickle, and they go up and down. And if we're talking about regression from a positive mean, we can also talk about regression from a negative mean. I would expect Dak's picks to come down this year because, like you said, it's hard to throw more. Does it concern me? Yes. In big spots, for sure. Can he win the big one? Can Dallas win the big one? This is the question. We were joking with this about our editor, right? He's like, why did the Dallas episode take so long? It's easy. They'll get to the playoffs and fold. Done. Like, we know. It's a joke. Relax, Cowboys fans. If they get over that hump, Dak will win this award. Like,
Big
period.
if.
End of story. Biggest if, because they have not been able to do it in decades. If they get over that hump, and Dak plays decently or better than he did last year and stays healthier, that's also a thing, he wins this award.
The biggest thing is just cutting out the random what the fuck Dak throw of the week.
100%. I would say 2.
We'll get a couple of those. We'll get a couple of those every single
week.
game. And it's literally inexplicable. You don't know what he was looking at. He probably doesn't know what he was looking at. He'll just chuck it up and say, CD's down there somewhere.
Yep.
And it always gets him into trouble.
Yep.
He's just got to cut those out. Because the only thing that's left after he cuts those out is 4,500 yards and 35 touchdowns and all the good stuff that we know and love about him. It's just those
reminds me a little bit of Josh Allen. When Josh Allen sort of goes...
With higher peaks, lower valleys.
Right, but that particular piece of... What are you doing?
Yeah.
Like, especially, Josh had it around the goal line. We talked about this a lot.
Yeah.
He would get inside the 20 and he would just, seems like once a week. And again, we've talked about how rare it is that you actually get clean red zone opportunities to score. It's 4 or 5 times a game. And once a week, he would just take one of those and just pitch it inexplicably. He would try and extend the play too far, play hero ball, whatever it was.
Sometimes literally pitch the ball, looking at the Texans game.
And we were just like, if he can knock that out, superpowers unlocked. It's a very similar story for Dak.
Looking at Offensive Player of the Year, we have 2 other NFC East teams picked for this one. I thought about going Dak for this award, not going to lie.
Sure.
But given how important Saquon is to the Giants offense, even with the addition of Waller, even with the receiving core being fleshed out, Saquon's the engine. Like, they go as Saquon goes.
Yep.
And now that he's back in the fold, whether begrudgingly or not, he's getting his $11 million or whatever it is. He is going to get leaned on again this year. And I do think that his numbers will be outrageous again this year.
Yep.
So for me, knowing that this is arguably the most important player on the team and arguably the most talented player on the team and possibly the most productive player on the team and in the entire division, I got to go with Saquon. Yes, I acknowledge the injury history scares me, and I hope that he makes it through the entire year again, because we love it when Saquon's healthy. But if he is healthy, for me, I can't pick anybody else besides him.
We just talked about in the rookie section how big of an unlock JMS will be, how much Dable likes to lean on this particular tool chest of a really interesting run game. And if that's the case, Saquon's going to be the beneficiary. And I can't argue that choice, but I picked somebody else. I ended up picking Terry McLaurin because I'm going to lean into my Commanders' secret power team status here. I really think Sam Howell's going to do well with the addition of Eric Bieniemy and Eric Bieniemy's offenses that he called, and you can argue that it was Andy's offense that was being called, lean on one receiver in particular. There is always one guy at the top of the pecking order, and that is without question in the Commanders' pecking order, Terry McLaurin. And if they hit, if Howell adapts as quickly as we hope he does, and the rest of the offense picks up Bieniemy's system, McLaurin is going to be the beneficiary, just like Saquon is for the Giants. And that could be 1,500 yards. That could be 1,600 yards. It could be 8 or 9 touchdowns. He could be leading this team every week. If that's the case, he'd be a fine pick for Offensive Player of the Year.
I mean, he got almost 1,200 last year, despite everything that was going on.
And that's a lot.
And that's a lot in that building. And we recapped all the positive changes in our Commanders episode on Monday of this week, whatever that was. We're recording this on Monday. So today, but also Monday, I don't know. Again,
we need that little Matthew McConaughey time is a flat circle can.
We're in like Memento right now.
Yes.
Like, this is a Christopher Nolan movie for football. Whatever day the Commanders episode was. But he, again, was hyper productive despite everything that was going on, despite a quarterback situation that was not great, despite an offensive philosophy that we heavily disagreed with. Yeah, philosophy is maybe not the correct term for it.
Well played.
1,500, completely plausible for how talented Terry is. And again, training camp highlights, not normally my thing, but if you're watching clips of Terry just absolutely toasting Emmanuel Forbes and mounting him on the wall, he's ready.
Yeah.
He's ready. Like, he is healthy. He is full speed. He is ready to go. He is Scary Terry in action. And Scary Terry at the height of his powers is something to be feared.
Yeah.
Speaking of something to be feared, we were consensus on Defensive Player of the Year for the NFC East, Micah Parsons, and there are so many good choices we could go with in this division. Hassan Reddick is in this division. Payne and Allen with Washington are valid choices. Big Dex from the Giants, valid choice.
Yep.
But if I'm power ranking every single defensive player in this division and I didn't put Micah at the very top, something would be seriously wrong with me.
Yeah, it took me about 90 seconds on this one. I was like...
Oh, that long?
Well, I did, but I started off everywhere else. I started off with Philly's defensive line and all the records there and the Commanders' defensive line, and I was like, and Micah. That's it. We're done.
Yeah.
Like, as soon as I got to Micah Parsons, I was like, Micah Parsons is truly different as a player. He stands out in an era where there are plenty of defensive superstars. Despite all the rules changes heaping towards offense, there are plenty of really talented, explosive, disruptive defensive players in the league right now. Micah's running his own show.
Yeah.
If Micah stays healthy, it's Micah, and there's no discussion.
He is 255 pounds of just rage and violence. He's faster than you. He's more fluid than you. He's more explosive than you. He's got better hands than you.
Super versatile.
He's Derek Thomas. Like, truly.
He's on that level. He's on that. And, we bring up these names pretty sparingly because they are the greats of the NFL. The Derek Thomases, the Lawrence Taylors. Those are the kind of comparisons that Micah's pulling after a couple of years because he just does things that other people don't do across the full range of defensive responsibilities. He can rush the passer. He can play linebacker. He can play out in space. He can cover slot receivers and do all of it incredibly well. But we all know how important putting pressure on the quarterback is. And there might not be anybody better in the NFL at putting pressure on the quarterback right now. Maybe Myles Garrett, maybe TJ Watt, maybe Nick Bosa, but it's all maybes.
None of them are carrying seam runners down the middle of Tampa 2 on top of being elite pass rushers, though.
Yeah.
That's what makes him different is, like, he can do anything.
Yeah.
And it's terrifying. It really is. Offensive Rookie of the Year, you and I were consensus on this one, JMS, John Michael Schmitz, for all the reasons we talked about earlier. Could be a top 5 center as a rookie. Defensive Rookie of the Year within the division. Finally have our first Jalen Carter sighting.
Yeah, I love your pick, but I had to go with Jalen Carter because I have a feeling that Jalen Carter is going to settle the ship. He had such a tumultuous pre-draft process, and there were so many questions about, will he reach his potential? What's the best landing spot? Is it going to work out for him? How far will he fall? There was all these questions. He ends up going to Philly, and immediately you're like, A, there's a billion Georgia players there. B, it's probably the best veteran core group in the league.
Oh, yeah.
In terms of like, hey, Jalen, this is the way we do it. Just follow us. You don't
You
have
think Fletcher
to be.
Cox is going to put up with any shit? No.
Well, I don't think anybody on that defensive line is, and that's what makes it such a cool room for him to have dropped into, and so bad for the rest of the league.
Yeah.
Like all that uncertainty about, hey, is he mature enough? Is he gonna be able to produce at the level we saw? Like all those questions. As soon as it was like Philly, you were like, yep, he's gonna be an absolute terror, and he. Physically, we've talked about this, was probably the best player in the draft.
I'll bet you anything that Brian Dable sent a text to Ryan Poles as soon as that trade happened. He's like, how dare you do this to me?
You jerk.
How dare you gift wrap that man into my division for the next 10 years, you asshole.
Yeah, now I have to deal with that. And he is gonna tear us under some of those pretty run games because that's what he does. And we've talked about the number of opportunities that any player at any position gets to truly impact a game every week. Quarterbacks, obviously, more because they have the ball in their hand every offensive possession. But defensive players, we've talked about clean pass rush, interior defensive line players. How many times can they truly disrupt or get a stop, really break a drive? Like he's going to do it some weeks 4 or 5 times. That means he hits every one of them, folks. You're only getting 5 or 6 opportunities as a defensive player to do that kind of thing, and he'll hit 4 out of 6. And that's the power of Jalen Carter.
For me, I went a slightly different direction, mainly because I wasn't sure if I was ever going to get to talk about Jartavius Martin again. So I'm going with Jartavius Martin, safety / nickel / corner extraordinaire for the Washington Commanders. Was a big part of an Illinois defense that to say their philosophy was just screw you, we're playing man coverage is an understatement. They were better than everybody, and they let you know it.
Yep.
Every single play. They just lined up in man every single play, and it worked.
Straight chaos.
And I think that if you look at the Washington defensive scheme under Jack Del Rio, which we broke down again earlier this week, with how much man coverage they would play in third and medium situations, with how, because of all the too high stuff they played, so how important the nickel is in terms of fitting the run, if you're playing all that quarters type stuff that they like to play. Jartavius as a nickel that can play man coverage with a two-way go and not lose, that can blitz, that can play the run. You know, if you need him to play safety, he can play safety. Like he just does everything that they need their DBs to do. He's a perfect fit. He's somebody who I thought very easily could have gone in the first round. He slipped to the second. And I like them a hell of a lot better in terms of my grade on him than the DB who they actually took in the first round. So I think he's going to be fantastic for them. I think he's going to be their own little version of Javon Holland. And I mean that as the greatest possible compliment I can give.
I love that direction. I love the player. I'm glad you picked him. We talked about him a lot in the Commanders episode. I think he has every chance to be as good or better than Emmanuel Forbes, who was their first-round pick. Certainly more versatile than Forbes. I think he's a little bit tougher, too. I'm not questioning Forbes' toughness. I'm saying I've seen it from Jartavius Martin coming, filling against the run. Very versatile player, and I think they'll make good use of him in Washington.
That brings us to Coach of the Year. Again, a lot of good choices in this division. But I'm going to go with the reigning champ, Brian Daboll. In terms of doing more with less, nobody in the NFL has done more with less than Brian Daboll over the last 12 months. And now he's got more to work with, so he can do even more with even more. I think that this is a playoff team again because they have Brian Daboll. And I as far as offensive coaches go, there's very few that I would trust to get the most out of Daniel Jones over Brian Daboll. He's one of the very best in the league, and the next 2 years have a real chance of actually working out for Danny Dimes just because they have Daboll.
Daboll did a fantastic job last year. No ifs, ands, or buts. Exceeded, I think, everybody's expectations, even if they were really high. Every week we kept coming back and saying, how does he squeeze wins out of this squad? He doesn't have the guys. Didn't matter to him, didn't matter to his coaching staff. That's really how it started, with him assembling a very diverse and talented staff. And they pulled that team to every last bit of success that they had last year. This year, more of that might be powered by the Jimmies and Joes. Last year, it was the X's and O's, without question. I'm going to go with Nick Sirianni. He's shown an amazing ability to adapt year over year and to learn. Came in, a lot of people, me included, worried that he was, pardon the pun, really green and wasn't maybe ready for prime time, sort of a wait and see kind of a thing. Adapted very quickly within the first year and then overcame challenges in the second year, again, to take that team to the Super Bowl in his second year of being a head coach. Unreal. Loses both coordinators, and I think a lot of people are going to be saying, well, they did great, but all the talent left the building. And we talked about how kind of sneaky smooth we think that transition might be, because not necessarily huge losses on either side or scheme changes. They're not, importing coaches from other systems and having to start at square one. They're kind of going to be able to pick it up. And if Sirianni continues to show his ability to lead and adapt and change and stay ahead of the curve, I think he can win it again this year.
He's a phenomenal coach, and I'm really happy that that opening press conference that got so much attention ended up not defining him, and I think a lot of people jumped on him too early because of that. Maybe because they didn't have anything else to talk about with him.
That was me. I had very little to go on, and I was like, "This is not a great start."
Well, he was a largely unknown coach, right? And so like a lot of people's first introduction to him was that press conference. And I don't blame them for, kind of being like, I don't know about this, but for that to end up not defining him and, as a young, inexperienced head coach, for him to find his footing so quickly, more than find his footing, to get to the Super Bowl,
to excel
within a few years, it just goes to show like how good of a coach he actually is, and that the Eagles made the right choice. And I couldn't be happier for him. I think he's a good dude and a good coach. And speaking of Nick Sirianni, that brings us finally to picking a division winner. I want to acknowledge all four of these teams or at least have great arguments to be playoff teams and more. 3 of them probably will make it. As for which 3, it's Philly and 2 others. I really couldn't tell you definitively what the other 2 are going to be. But I do think that this division is going to produce 3 playoff teams again. And it might come again pretty darn close to 4 playoff teams. So whether you pick Philly, whether you pick Dallas, whether you pick the Giants, whether you pick the Commanders, you're not really wrong to have faith in any of these 4 teams because all of them legitimately are playoff caliber. That being said, I'd be a dumbass not to pick Philly to win this division. Straight up. They're the most talented team. Again, Nick Sirianni is a great coach. They have, in my opinion, the best quarterback in the division. They were already a Super Bowl caliber roster that arguably got even better. I do think, again, everybody else in the NFC East is great, but if you pick anybody but the Eagles to win this division, you're just wrong. Sorry.
Well, it's consensus for both of us. We both picked the Eagles for many of the same reasons. They're also deeper than everybody else in this division, so they're better equipped to withstand injury thanks to Howie Roseman's roster construction, which we sang the praises of endlessly during the Eagles episode. And Sirianni's a great coach. Yes, they have very steady leadership. We talked about how good their veteran leadership is outside of Jalen Hurts, who is a fine leader by himself. They are more disaster-proofed than any other team in this division. I could point to 2 or 3 things for the other 3 teams in this division that I'd be like, it would be really hard for them to overcome. I'd have to go 3 or 4 moves deep, maybe more, before I could legitimately feel like Philadelphia wouldn't perform because of whatever catastrophes I'd strung together. That's starting to stretch the story pretty thin. Philadelphia is top of the division. They look to be the top of the division again. Got great coaching staff, the best roster in the division. They're the easy choice for division winner.
Overall, again, it's a great division. Hopefully we've conveyed that properly, like how stacked they are, both last year and this year. I consider myself a fan of all 4 of these rosters. And so, if you're a Cowboys, Giants, or Commanders fan, don't jump down my throat. Like, I think you can understand the choice we made here. And we do think that all 4 teams are going to be successful. I really just can't wait to watch these division games this year because they're going to be knockdown, drag-out fights, all of them. They're going to be mostly in prime time, so we'll get to watch most of them. And as far as entertainment factor goes, you really can't do better in the NFC East. So I'm excited. If you guys are also excited, if you're NFC East fans, you're looking for more gear, by the way, Homage is our clothing partner. I'm actually wearing an Homage hoodie right now. It's not NFC East, it's AFC East, but still. I'm wearing an AFC East hoodie from Homage right now that is incredibly comfortable. And I swear our life's goal is to get them to make our merch, because I don't know where they source their stuff from, but it's unbelievably good quality, and I'm kind of mad that we can't figure out where their factories are. But Kev, if you're watching, we're going to make that happen.
What's up? We will crack the code. They will eventually make our bootleg shirts, but they have an NFL license, so they've got 20 or 30 designs for every team, including throwbacks, alternate colors, hoodies, T-shirts, you name it. Use the link down in the description. Every purchase you make using that helps out the podcast. And look, you'll have some gear that you will always put on the top of your drawer. If it's there, you will grab it first and you will wash it and you will put it right back on the top of the stack, because it is the most comfortable stuff that I've come across yet for any kind of NFL gear.
I'm wearing a crew neck in summer. Like, that's how comfortable.
That's very California of you.
Hey, man, it's under 77. That's sweater weather for us, okay?
It's chilly.
There's somebody in the comments, by the way, that was like, oh, God, Brett came up here and all of a sudden it turned 80. It's uncomfortable now. And I'm like, get over yours. 80 degrees is uncomfortable for you people?
It's a PNW thing, man. We have moss on our toes. It will die.
Oh, my God. You people are spoiled up here. You know that?
100%.
It's great weather, though. Not going to lie. All right. We're going to be back next week talking AFC East. I'll get to wear this again for the Dolphins episode. We're also talking Patriots, Bills, everything that's gone on with the Jets.
Yes, that our green team.
Quite a bit. That episode's going to be a long one. And then we're picking the AFC East winner. And then we are done with this series after nearly 3 months of grinding on it. I can't wait.
Yeah, DUN, done.
I never remember how hard this is to do every single year. And every single year I trick myself into thinking like, oh yeah, it's just...
If you remembered, you wouldn't do it.
We'll be done by August. Yeah. No, we never are. So anyway, we'll see you guys next week for AFC East. And until then, cheers.